My name's Jennifer Kirikakis. I'll be moderating the session. I am founder and CMO of a company called Matrix Software. Matrix does monetization platforms, so I'm really interested to hear from the panelists today to kind of debate where we are in the industry with 5G Advanced and with the enterprise opportunity, because we personally would love to see the industry start making more money off of 5G. So you guys can have a seat. I'll let you introduce yourselves. Kishan, go ahead.
My name's Kishan Mangat. I am a recovering founder and executive of the communications industry, turned general partner at Boulder Ventures.
Excellent. I'm Pankaj Malhotra. I lead the wireless WAN and cybersecurity business line over at Cradlepoint, which is part of Ericsson.
Hello, good morning. Alejandro Holkman. I'm Senior Vice President of Engineering of Qualcomm.
Hi, morning. I'm Bill from Singtel. I'm the CEO of the Digital Infrastructure Unit, and essentially, the growth units of the infrastructures that support Singtel's overall business globally. 5G platforms is one of those that's under our unit, amongst data centers, GPUs as a service for AI and all that stuff. Yeah.
Great. So I wanted to kick off the discussion with some of your opinions on what the state of adoption is within the enterprises for 5G. I think the prevalent feeling is that we're not where we thought we would be 5 years ago, even 4 years ago. So Pankaj, I'll kick off with you. Where do you think we are? How are we doing? And how are we gonna get adoption going?
Softball question, right? Yeah, right. So yes, we are not there with 5G, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. But what we're seeing is, for example, the product that I lead, it was used as a backup product by industry. It was used as backup, your wired being primary, wireless being backup. And our hope was with 5G that they would abandon that and just go all in with the primary link being 5G. So I think it's still seen as a backup for the enterprises. But there are use cases, pop-up stores, day zero connectivity kind of examples where 5G is gaining traction. And of course, on mobile kind of fronts, we are seeing a larger traction for the enterprises, vehicle tracking, delivery services, etc. We are seeing a lot of, well, they don't have an option, so they gotta go with 5G. But the speeds and feeds is going back and enabling applications which were not possible earlier.
Bill, from your perspective, from an operator perspective, I mean, are you happy where enterprise adoption is, and what are you guys doing around advancing that?
Well, if you look at most carriers, we talk to them, 5G, you're all behind, way behind the use, sort of returns. And actually 5 years ago in 2018, as our CTO was rolling out, 5G across the markets in Asia, we occupied 21 markets. So asking for billions of dollars to roll out in Singapore, Australia, and multiple countries where we operate in. The CEOs of the business, I was running the enterprise business then, was asked to comment on what are the use cases in 2018 before the networks gets built. And my statement to the board when I lead on to this discussion was 5G will be the last G that carriers will ever build, own, and operate if we cannot break out of the current business model and out of the commodity connectivity business. And indeed, we're seeing the challenge. And until we transform our business model, we will be stuck in this conundrum. And today we know that's the reality. But through our sort of strategic insight then, we started working on a platform play in 2018 after sharing our ideas and the thoughts and the challenges. And we spent 4 years to develop R&D through a software unit. And we developed what's in 2022, in February, we launched the industry's first aggregation and orchestration platform for 5G and Edge, codenamed Paragon. And it was launched on February 2022. Since then, Singapore and Singtel, we've occupied 95% market share for enterprise 5G, and we're accelerating the penetration. Out of 4 operators, we own 95% market share. In 2022, when we were rolling that out, and our Thai entity, AIS, faced the same challenge of not being able to sell, and they said, can we license this platform? And we did that, enabled them, and now AIS occupies 100%, almost 100% of the Thai market, being a platform play. And the platform transforms a telco to a techco. and it really brings about use cases driven by applications powered by the 5G connectivity and 4G and Wi-Fi 6, plus compute and AI capabilities underneath it. And this platform brings applications to drive industry use cases. And since then, we now have Chonghua Telecom rolling it out in Taiwan. MásMóvil in Spain is rolling this out. And just yesterday, Telkomsel, the largest player in Indonesia, is rolling out. And we are building the technology stacks. VMware announced this morning that they're going to be a stack in that Paragon platform. And yesterday, 14. And so we are bringing in more carriers. We are bringing to adopt this to transform their 5G monetization. We're bringing the whole ecosystem up. And with more ecosystem, more services, more carriers means more ecosystem. So the network effect is starting to roll. And so this is what we're seeing, where most of the carriers are still stuck on a connectivity business model.
So it brings up kind of an interesting question, though. So is it really the use cases, in specific use cases in specific industries, that are going to drive adoption? Or is it having more of a platform approach, more of sort of an end-to-end type of solution that's easier for people to adopt? And I want to go to Kishan, actually, because we were talking about this earlier. I mean, do you think it's use cases, or do you think it's sort of the deployment model? And does 5G, the deployment model, need to be easier, for things to get really adopted faster?
Yeah, I mean, I think our paradigm as an industry, is build it and they'll come. I mean, look at each generation of wireless, 1G, 2G, 3G. I mean, this is really how we operate. But I think the good news is if you look at some of the demand drivers out in the market on the enterprise side, I mean, enterprise digitization is only accelerating. The need for edge data everywhere in the enterprise is an absolutely massive opportunity. So I think, things are behind where we thought they would be 5 years ago, but I actually think that push and pull is starting to come together in this industry, largely because of the demand being driven on the enterprise side by AI.
And do you think there are sort of gaps in the ecosystem right now? Do you see sort of holes in the ecosystem anywhere that is preventing kind of the acceleration?
I mean, in one of my wish lists, and it's great to hear what Bill had to say about the investments that Singtel is making, but I think the operators need to lean forward a lot more in terms of investment. I think if you take a page out of the cloud players playbook, when cloud players were building their data centers, they weren't getting all the products and infrastructure that they needed from the vendor ecosystem. They started to build those chips and those boxes themselves, and we've seen how that's really helped them to scale their models. I think that the operators can do the same. One of the biggest challenges that you have for the adoption of enterprise 5G is the bifurcation of use cases across different geographies and also different spectrum requirements. And so, the time to market for having the right RAN products, the right infrastructure products, is really, slowing down the operator's ability to basically scale up these services, or for enterprises to build their own private networks. And so leaning forward and putting investments into building technology similar to what the cloud players did could be an important answer in certain cases.
Makes sense. So I'm going to jump to Alejandro. I think we also want to hear about the device market, right? I mean, we saw some interesting stats up from Lou. I mean, how is the device market evolving, and where are we in terms of 5G available devices?
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited. We're making a lot of progress on the device side. As the presentation before, there's a new capability called RedCap, reduced capability, that is lowering the cost of the device. The way that is happening is reducing the number of MIMO layers, reducing the number of antennas that the device requires, reduces the BOMs, reduces the numbers of RF chains. So that, and also increases the performance of the device by having more battery life. So we're pretty excited about RedCap. We announced our Snapdragon X35 last year, and now on this Mobile Congress, we're actually seeing products. We're actually seeing quite a few of our OEM customers coming up with actual devices that are based on our RedCap chip.
Okay. And how do you see AI evolving on these devices? How is that coming into play?
Yeah, well, I'm sure everybody has seen how AI is migrating, right? AI starting on the cloud, is developing and evolving on the cloud, but we are seeing a tremendous amount of shift to on-device AI. And you know, as you're seeing it, not just on handsets, but also we're migrating across the whole portfolio. So the computing capability that these devices now have, you can actually have AI running pervasively. You can have AI running all the time. So that's very important. We've released now a whole AI hub, more than 80 models that are on Hugging Face, where developers can actually pick the right models and actually bring them to the Snapdragon devices. So that's moving very, very fast. If you think about it, ChatGPT 3.5 was just released, you know, a year and a half ago, and look where we are now on device AI. So industry is moving very, very fast on that. It's happening on the cloud, but it's also happening on the device side.
Okay. So you know, enabling the ecosystem. I think what the burning question is, though, and I'll throw it to Pankaj first, but I want to hear from all of you. What are the use cases that you're seeing actually getting adopted at this stage in time? What are the key use cases in what industries?
Yeah, so what we see, of course, we are pretty strong in retail, for example. I think retail is extremely dependent upon wireless connectivity as a backup option to start with. But we're also seeing some of them make that shift now to say, well, let's not have a wired connection at all. Let's just go wireless completely. Now, what is preventing them at times, sometimes, is two things. As the chipsets evolve, particularly for enterprise class of products, sometimes timing of that becomes a hindrance. And then, of course, as the carriers change from a NSA network over to an SA network, the kind of changes that happen in that network sometimes cause an rippling effect down to what they were expecting out of their out of the product that they got. So, but we are seeing that shift. Large major retailers going all in with wireless. But of course, if their experience gets soured, then they kind of pull back a little bit. The other use case that we've started seeing a lot more is particularly for customers for whom quality of service matters. Slicing use cases starting to go back and appear. To be able to go back and steer traffic on a purely wireless kind of a network with slices for traffic that matters to them. We have a couple of use cases that we are seeing in extremely, you know, they are dependent upon wireless, and in some cases it's a life and death kind of situations. First responders in particular are very, very, of course, they're all mobile all the time, and for them slicing is a very, very important use case that they're beginning to go back and converge on as well. So yeah, I think the use cases are beginning to go back and evolve. I think what is holding things back is a reliable, solid network that they can lean on, the chipset ecosystem as it evolves, and then of course, as Alejandro pointed out, the whole RedCap with the prices coming down, that ecosystem needs to go back and start evolving. We're also seeing a proliferation with the private 5G. Private 5G is taking on a lot faster particularly in the industrial segment per se. And then that combined together with a WAN that is running off of a macro network and the correlation between them, we are beginning to see those use cases now begin to go back and emerge, where it's a completely wireless enterprise, starting from the LAN all the way to the WAN with security thrown in together.
All right, so retail and first responder, big ones. Bill, yeah, I was going to call on you next, exactly.
We are seeing a lot of use cases happen, a lot. In the area of advanced manufacturing, I'll give an example. We enable Hyundai Motor Group in Singapore, building EV cars, 100 output a day. That's meant for the Singapore market, and Las Vegas for robo-taxis, autonomous, level 4 autonomy, all built in Singapore. And the factory that produces 100 EV cars a day has no factory workers. Purely 50 service engineers to service hundreds of robots working in the symphony orchestra, building 100 output cars, Ioniq 5 a day. And everything is being built, and it's live. Everything that's being built gets captured in a digital twin. Because the data, it's so important in simulating, predicting, optimizing, so that when they move to Ioniq 6, they're able to do it in a few hours instead of 3 to 4 weeks reconfiguration. So that allows them to then mix Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 lines, interchangeably as the robots and the whole supply chain gets managed coming into that whole, factory. That's just one example. We've done ports, we've done semiconductors, we've done airports, Changi Airport. A plane lands, we're basically using all the video cameras around it and analyzing how fast the plane's passengers come out and how fast the cleaning crew goes in, servicing crew, the fuel, everything gets captured on video analytics. And they'll tell you, which part of the supply crew is missing and therefore how much the plane gets stuck on the ground and they need to turn around fast so that, airports really want to turn around planes fast so that they don't stay in the sky on that. We're enabling ports and all that. And we think this is Singapore, it's a smart nation, okay, these things are happening there at scale, at speed. But actually, when we actually launched the platform into Thailand, we're starting to see our Thai counterpart actually address automated mining. That is, remote control, remote piloting of mine, AGVs out a few hundred kilometers from Bangkok, but the drivers are sitting in Bangkok operating huge AGVs and mining material, and basically video cameras and all that, see now, see clearly, and automating that. And they're doing the same automated factories. And all these use cases are coming together, and through that platform, we're enabling this, and most important of all, through the alliance, we're basically sharing with each other, how do we do this? And the whole GTM capability, the ecosystem there, we're basically enabling each other and taking our experiences from one country, replicating to that. In Spain, when MassMobile launched this, it's about using that platform to enable smart stadiums so that they can do analytics on that stadium and reconfiguring all those mobile cameras and then basically powering up through the video analytics at the end and analyzing the game dynamics without having to set up a lot of fixed infrastructures. And then they go on and sell smart stadium as a service. That's what we enable through the platform in MassMobile. So I think we're going on and really doing that. Chonghua Telecom's got a lot of activities up there. We're enabling that and turning that on. And we're in the midst of discussing with a few European telcos that will be adopting this in the next 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, the smart stadium's a great one because I think that it's something that everybody is tangible, like that we all can experience and we all see, versus some of the more industrial use cases that a lot of us don't get exposed to unless we're directly involved. Alejandro, do you have anything to add from the device standpoint?
No,
what devices
we
are really
see very similar demand on the device side as Bill is referring to. Basically, anywhere where just Wi-Fi is not enough. It's just very simple. People love Wi-Fi, but there's some things that just Wi-Fi cannot do, especially in large areas, large ports, airports, things where, even stadiums, we have cases where private networks where to check your ticket, they don't want that kind of very important, or security cameras, that kind of important function be blocked by any kind of Wi-Fi demand that the fans would have. So there are some very key cases where you need a very private, very secure network, and those are the cases that we're seeing.
So Christian, I'm going to ask for a little bit of different input from you in terms of, looking across your portfolio companies. I mean, where do you see the most action happening in terms of different industries and different use cases?
Yeah, I mean, I'll maybe just call out 3 specific examples. I mean, not only portfolio companies of ours, but just companies that I think are interesting and what they're working on, that's relevant and important for this moment. There's one company over in Hall 5 called Spectrum Effect, and what they've built is a RAN interference solution, which is pretty important for 5G rollout, but which also has important applications for spectrum sharing. And everything that we're talking about here with respect to enterprise 5G adoption is really either hindered or accelerated based on how effectively we can manage finite spectrum resources and across multiple jurisdictions. So really bullish on what they're doing, and we haven't talked that much about spectrum, but I do think that's, when we talk about how do we operate enterprise 5G at cloud scale, spectrum is one of the big impediments there. The second one I would call out, it's not a portfolio company, but a really interesting company that I've been tracking called Expanso, and what they've built is an edge data platform for AI. So, one of the real headwinds for enterprise developers today is that they're in many ways wrapped around the axle of the cloud, and when you're trying to process data at the edge and trying to really create the right application for your environment, often a centralized architecture is not the right architecture. And so there's going to be new waves of edge technologies that mimic what cloud does well, but with the right data architecture. And then I think the final example I would point to is if you look, I spent a lot of time at Cisco in the prior decade, and we really nailed it with Wi-Fi, with Meraki, because it was the concept of cloud management was what really allowed the Meraki business to scale. I think there are waves of startups that are coming in that arena. They maybe end up being more verticalized for the requirements of a specific vertical industry, but companies like Ataya are really getting traction in some of the manufacturing use cases that are in the Far East.
Great. So I'm wondering about how important fixed wireless access is in the adoption for enterprises. So I'll start with you, Pankaj. Is that driving a lot of the adoption?
Absolutely. I think fixed wireless access is one of the big use cases that we've starting to see emerge. Now, they all started off as a consumer-first kind of an offering, but we are beginning to see from the carrier they reselling or they selling fixed wireless access for businesses, and that is really, as we talk about retail picking up something, or SMBs or SMEs or MSMEs picking up wireless. It's all about that day zero connectivity. It's about day zero connectivity and simplified operations, as Kishan was talking about that simplicity of that operations. And that's where we're beginning to see a lot of traction across carriers worldwide, where it's going beyond that whole consumer kind of domain, which is all about just connectivity, to say, how do we get secure connectivity? How do we get predictable connectivity? That's where I believe that this is where the use cases with slicing come into that picture, to be able to offer that kind of SLAs down to the enterprise using that fixed wireless access. So yeah, we are seeing a lot of that traction in that space too.
What about you, Bill? Is that a big part of the offering right now, fixed wireless access?
Sorry.
Fixed wireless access?
Fixed wireless access, not in Singapore.
No?
In Australia, we operate in. Yeah. So depend on the countries we operate, where you use the augmentation of fiber and all that, yeah. But not certainly in Singapore, where everything is fiber up. We're now rolling 100G to the homes and flats. Yeah.
Got it.
We see a lot of, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just commenting on the other point about, the enterprise point of view, why they're so hard to try and scale this. We were just hosting a CEO and CXO dinner on Sunday night with 60 telco leaders around the world, hosted by Singtel, and including tech companies. So there were 30, 40 telcos, and amongst them were enterprises. And one of the leading enterprises, Hitachi Global, and the chief growth officer from the US is adopting this for their private network, the same platform that we have. And he actually cited that it's so hard for enterprises to roll out 5G in the current form and scale globally because there is a lack of a standard. And this lack of a standard, for example, one country may have NSA, another country SA, another country you have different SLAs, and it's impossible for them. And now it's not just connectivity. They got to figure out, is there a cloud? They got to put on-prem cloud. They got to figure out, is it edge cloud? And some countries are doing a cloud, and then all that stuff and applications as you start rolling out, it's not consistently standardized. And as a result, many of them start with this experimentation and they stay as experimentation or get shut down because they can't scale horizontally globally. And until Hitachi was looking for a platform and they pounced upon Paragon and they saw what the telcos were doing, and they actually are licensing and they're rolling this out into the US and starting to think about rolling out in Asia because it now offers a standardized platform to activate multiple networks under them, orchestrating that so that they can be multi-tenanted. It orchestrates the edge clouds at their environment, fixed network, orchestrate the public cloud to ensure that they are not locked in by any public clouds, and it allows them to stitch applications northbound. And so now the applications drive that, and they now look at which carrier is deploying Paragon. And it says now, I'm going, and then Bill, your job is to export that capability globally, make it, and then as carriers build this up through a federation of a global edge capability, and then companies like Hitachi will be able to roll out at scale, versus in the current environment, they have to go in every country to figure out retooling that's impossible for them to scale. And that was his main point. It's got to be driven by use cases. It's got to be a standardized platform that I can scale globally at scale and at speed. So I just wanted to reflect that point.
Absolutely. I mean, Alejandro, do you see standards as an issue?
No, I think I wanted to make a point on the fixed wireless side of things. It's a very interesting and exciting area. I think with the addition of the number of bands that have been allocated across many countries, I think the operators are finding that there's quite a bit of spectrum. And like Bill was saying, you know, what are the additional opportunities out there? And it's an increased business for us. And when you actually look at the capacity of the networks, there is enough capacity to put quite a few fixed wireless terminals, whether it's a window type of terminal that you put by a window or rooftop type terminals, whether it's on low bands or on millimeter wave. There's a lot of millimeter wave spectrum in many areas. So we are seeing quite a bit of fixed wireless as a very healthy increase.
Got it. So capacity doesn't seem to be an issue. I mean, I guess the question that I would have, is there any play, in terms of 5G adoption, is there any play, how important will satellite or somebody like Starlink be in this whole ecosystem?
Satellites, is it? I can't hear.
Yeah.
Satellites. Very interestingly, satellites is a very important element. And if you think about what's happening in the LEO space with Starlink, soon Amazon's Kuiper, AST Mobile that goes straight to your mobile devices, it's going to be, you know, a really key complement of terrestrial networks, fixed and mobile, and to extend out to the oceans. There's going to be MEOs out there, a lot of them. So this whole satellite game is changing very fast. But one of the key challenge that customers will have again, as you go out, whether it's a ship or it's oil rigs or, you know, on large terrestrial land where you have no terrestrial coverage and satellite comes in, you want to have the optionality to be able to switch and orchestrate that satellite connectivity. Just in case if you go out to the sea, certain black spots occur because you're using Starlink and then OneWeb has got coverage and one don't have. You have the ability to switch and to have a system to be able to allow to automatically switch to allow contiguous coverage as you move, right? And that's an important thing for a number of use cases. And we're starting to see that the platform that we have orchestrates originally 5G. It fell back to 4G, Wi-Fi 6, and SD-WAN now. And all the LEOs we are basically plugging in through APIs, and the MEOs and the GEOs. And the use case is very simple. You know, we demonstrated this to the satellite LEO players, and it's actually one that for satellite operators, they're starting to see the interest of this platform because it allows them now the power of control. Without that, it's very hard to make margins out of some of these LEOs. For example, you know, very fast-growing one, it's Starlink. And where Starlink can wholesale to you, sell to the enterprise customers, and they will also offer it online. So as a telco buying all this infrastructure, where do you make your margins? And as you show this capability or ability to orchestrate across multiple networks, customers like that. Secondly, I think you know, it allows them control of what do you switch to and how do you use that. So we're starting to get requests coming in from an interesting, although it was designed for telcos, satellite operators are asking for this platform now to allow them to really allow control back to their customers so that as satellite operators, they have now the ability to manage all the capacities. and most important of all, make the margins. Because and the starling eyes are, how do you ensure this will switch to me if I've got coverage and not another player? My point is, well, it all depends on the margins I get.
Got it. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. I'll throw that to each of you, if each of you have anything more to say on satellite, or just any final closing comment on where you think the priorities are in terms of driving the enterprises. Keshan, I'll start with you.
The one area I didn't touch on that we already hit on a bit was with respect to fixed wireless access, and maybe this is just advice or guidance for the operators, but it's easy to look at fixed wireless access because it's natural for the operators. It's really is that better? It's incremental. It's the business that you've been doing. It's not very different than consumer. And when you look at the kind of disruption that's happening with satellite, for example, they're able to get to the customer more quickly. It's distributed, and the key attributes that 5G should be dominating for in the enterprise is range, critical communication, and the ability to have highly secure communication. But if we only move incrementally and don't tackle those big problems, it's really going to be a missed opportunity.
Thanks. Pankaj?
All right. I think, look, 5G is here to stay. Wireless WAN and 5G in the enterprise is here to stay. I think it's the combination of private networks, 5G private networks, the wireless WAN portion, the seamless private to public mobility that is needed, is going to really go back and make that shift. It's a shift in people's minds about cutting the cord. Some people have done it, others have not, but it's here to stay. And I think the more the operators, the chipset vendors, the equipment manufacturers work together to try to create that device ecosystem and standards in order for that seamless mobility to go back and work and deploy, I think the better it'll be for the industry.
Great.
I think one of the things we didn't touch on is the management of the network. I think that we made a lot of progress in terms of how easy it is to deploy a private network in terms of virtualization. A lot of the advances there, a lot of the advances in management and deployment. So especially hyperscalers where you have it in the cloud, where you have it on private network, AI is going to continue to help that to make it easier for the enterprise to manage.
Yeah, automation is key, definitely. All right, well, thanks, everybody. It's good to hear your views, and that's it. Cheers.
Thank you.